Dixie Garage. On this one, I'm going to talk to y'all about what to do if your bike won't start. So, use an example. I came out the other day and my wife's Sportster wouldn't start. Right here, we got an 883. It's a 2005 883 Sportster, and came out the other day and it wouldn't start. So I'm going to go over all the issues. I'm going to try and broadly cover it as much as I can for everything, because it's really all the same. It doesn't matter if you're talking about cars, trucks, motorcycles, four-wheelers, whatever. Really all the same stuff. The process to go through to find out if it's a fuel problem, a fire problem. To cover the basics to start with from the beginning. So let's say you have no power. Okay, on say like a Honda 1100, you have your solenoid and it has the main fuse right there at the solenoid. So that'll, if that fuse blows out, it'll kill your power completely. You won't have anything come on, no lights, nothing. Check that main fuse first. Crank situations. If it's not cranking, you want to check your battery, all the connections. Sometimes the kill switch can be a problem. That's actually a pretty common problem with the Hondas. Now, I've seen people take sandpaper or whatever and just kind of clean the points there, and that'll do it on the starter button. Should apply to most things. You know, things get corroded or weathered after all the years. You can replace it, or sometimes you can just clean it up. Most of the time it works if you just clean it up, get a clean metal to metal contact there. So yeah, check your battery, make sure you got at least 12.5 volts or so, and then as long as you got that, you move on to your connections. Everything needs to be a good, clean connection. A lot of times they'll look fine, but they're still not making, they have a corrosion on them, you know, that you really can't see all that much, but then they're not making a good contact. So you can check that. And I'm gonna show you how to walk through everything on the battery and all that real quick. But yeah, so we covered no power, no crank. Those are, you know, those are the easiest ways to check all that. Batteries, connections, main fuses on certain bikes. So then you move on to, is it a fuel or a fire problem? If the bike is cranking, the vehicle in general, car, truck, whatever, if it's cranking but it won't start, you either have a fuel problem or a fire problem. And I'm about to show you right now how to walk through all those. So for those of y'all that your bike won't crank, your first steps are going to be the battery and all that. I'm about to cover that in a second. For anyone who your bike won't start, it's cranking but it won't start, it's either going to be a fuel problem or it's going to be a firing problem. Okay, so right now this is cranking but nothing's happening. Doesn't matter if it chokes on, whatever. This is going to tell you, putting starter fluid directly in the intake is going to tell you what your problem is. It's going to let you know if it's either fuel or if it's fire, and that gives you which category you're tackling. Okay, so if it's a fuel problem, it doesn't matter if it's fuel pump, if it's a clogged line, bad gas, carburetor, whatever. If it's a fuel problem, starter fluid is going to start it, at least for a second. If it's a firing problem, this ain't going to change shit. So we're going to put that in there and see. Got nothing. Also, don't hold your starter button down for more than, say, about 5 seconds. You can burn a starter up. It's just an electric motor. But now we move on to the next step. We know the problem is not fuel. Most people, you come out, it doesn't start. If it's not cranking at all, you're going to jump start it. And I mean, that's usually the logical explanation. That's the first thing most of us go to. So we're going to cover right now if it doesn't crank. If it doesn't crank, there's two common causes, which is one, is the battery good? Right here, we got 12.4, 12.3, anywhere from anything past 12, but you know, around 12.5, 12.8 that's perfect. 12.3 is going to start this bike. So we know that the battery's putting out enough, so now we got to check all these cables. So what you do if it's not cranking is you're going to take these cables off and you're going to clean them all up with sandpaper like I just talked about on the switch. You do the same thing right here. And that's what actually happened just recently on a bike. So I already showed you what to do if it's not cranking. You know, check your battery, check your, make sure the voltage is good, and then check all the connections. So if those, and it's still not cranking, next step would be moving on to starter and solenoid. All the grounds, all across everything, you would check all the grounds, but that's part of checking the battery connections. You know, you don't just clean one, you clean them all. So yeah, battery, cables, and then solenoid, that would be your no cranking issues. Then you move on. So now we know the problem is not fuel because I put the starter fluid directly in the intake and nothing changed. come up front here to the coil. I'm going to show you right now how to test the coil, which is, you know, you ground out. Ground out, unplug the coil. So if you do that and then you hit the off switch, the kill switch, and that cuts off, that lets you know that that switch is working right. You see there's voltage to it. So if there's voltage making it to the coil, then that lets you know that it's not getting past the coil. So the coil I got from Rick's Motorcycle on eBay has the new wires, so that's good. It's rare that the wires go bad, but they do. Got new plugs on. I'm about to show you before I put this one on how you can test the plugs to know if they're bad or not. Most of you probably already know, but for those of you who don't, here's a little magic trick. And it fired up on one, but still, basically, I don't know how well you could see it in the video, but you'll be able to see the spark going back and forth right there as long as it's grounded. So let me get this other one in and we'll fire it up.